Hey guys, John Adamson with See No Evil. Please forgive the rumbling V8 in the background as I have my Suburban running on a cold, dreary, and rainy, sleety, snowy day. It was really a mess today, but I went out for work anyway. So we're going to continue. Don't mind the fluff of the hair. We are going to continue with the reading of the 1776 Project. And we've been building the case. I shouldn't say we, the people that put together this wonderful project, this report, which I've been reading through for you, which really does a good job of chronicling the history of our government, our constitutional republic, why we came about, why we have the power split that we do between three branches of government, why we are a country of laws and rules and not of people, and also some of the challenges that are presented to a constitutional republic. Please forgive the gear shift and the steering wheel that you see in the video. But we're up to a section on racism and identity politics. The 13th Amendment of the Constitution, passed after the Civil War, brought an end to legal slavery. Blacks enjoyed a new equality and freedom, voting and holding elective office. Here, I'm going to turn this off. Voting and holding elective office in states across the Union. But it did not bring an end to racism or to an unequal treatment of blacks everywhere. Despite the determined efforts of the post-war Reconstruction Congress to establish civil equality for freed slaves, the post-bellum, that means after the war, South ended up devolving into a system that was hardly better than slavery. The system enmeshed freedom in relationships of extreme dependency and used poll taxes, literacy tests, and the violence of vigilante groups like the Ku Klux Klan to prevent them from exercising their civil rights, particularly the right to vote. Jim Crow laws enforced the strict segregation of the races and gave legal standing in some states to a pervasive subordination of blacks. It would take a national movement composed of people from different races, ethnicities, nationalities, and religions to bring about an America fully committed to ending legal discrimination. The Civil Rights Movement culminated in the 1960s with the passage of three major legislative reforms affecting segregation, voting, and housing rights. It presented itself and was understood by the American people as consistent with the principles of the founding. When the architects, this is a quote, when the architects of our republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir, Martin Luther King Jr. said in his I Have a Dream speech. Quote, this note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It seemed finally that America's nearly two-century effort to realize fully the principles of the Declaration had reached a culmination. But the heady spirit of the original Civil Rights Movement, whose leaders forcefully quoted the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, and the rhetoric of the founders and of Lincoln, proved to be short-lived. The Civil Rights Movement was almost immediately turned to programs that ran counter to the lofty ideals of the founders. The ideas that drove this change had been growing in America for decades, and they distorted many areas of policy in the half-century that followed. Among the distortions was the abandonment of non-discrimination and equal opportunity in favor of group rights, not unlike those advanced by Calhoun and his followers. The justification for reversing the promise of colorblind civil rights was that past discrimination requires present effort or affirmative action in the form of preferential treatment to overcome long accrued inequalities. Those forms of preferential treatment built up in our system over time, first in administrative rulings, then executive orders, later in congressionally passed law, and finally were sanctified by the Supreme Court. Today, far from a regime of equal natural rights for equal citizens, enforced by equal application of law, we have moved towards a system of explicit group privilege that, in the name of social justice, demands equal results and explicitly sorts citizens into protected classes based on race and other demographic categories. Eventually, this regime of formal inequality would come to be known as identity politics. The stepchild of earlier rejections of the founding, identity politics, discussed in Appendix 3, so I'll have to read the appendices, values people by characteristics like race, sex, and sexual orientation, and holds that new times demand new rights to replace the old. This is the opposite of King's hope that his children would live in a nation where this is quote, live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character, and denies that all are endowed with the unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Identity politics makes it less likely that racial reconciliation and healing can be attained by pursuing Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream for America and upholding the highest ideals of our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. So there you have it, the final part of Section 4. Flipping on the head the narrative of the 1619 Project that would equate things like racial reparations and things like that as justice, and saying that we are actually going against justice when we have identity politics and the pursuit of putting the needs of one group ahead of others, the very opposite of Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. Well written. Again, ask yourself the questions. Was this racist? It points out very clearly we had some issues after the civil rights movement, and even leading up to that. Was it hard to understand? I think it was pretty straightforward. And was it historically inaccurate? Not from all the history I've read, and the quotes are appropriately used. So there you have it, folks. The 1776 Project Report. Hope you're having a great day. Take care. God bless.